Good afternoon, and welcome to UCEA YouTube Live. This is Amy Reynolds, Graduate Research Assistant and Doctoral Student at UCEA headquarters at the University of Virginia. I'm here today to interview Sarah Diem as a part of her candidacy for the UCEA Executive Committee. Today, listeners will be hearing from Sarah Diem, an Associate Professor of PK-12 Leadership and Policy and the Director of Graduate Studies in the Department of Educational Leadership and Policy Analysis at the University of Missouri. Her research focuses on the social, political, and geographic context of education, focusing primarily on how the politics and implementation of educational policies affect outcomes related to equity and racial and economic diversity within public schools. Welcome, Dr. Diem.
Thank you, Amy.
Let's begin with the first question. Please tell us about your background and your scholarship as it relates to leadership preparation and practice.
Great. Well, thanks again, Amy, and thank you to the nomination committee and Michelle Young for the opportunity to run for a position on the executive committee. So just a little bit about my background. I really come to this work from a policy background. After obtaining my master's in public administration, I went on to work for two nonprofit organizations in Los Angeles County that were focused on child advocacy and promoting educational access to families. And the experiences that I had in these organizations and seeing how important research is in influencing policy and practice really led me to then going on to get my PhD in educational policy and planning at the University of Texas at Austin. And it was there where I really gained the skills and the experience necessary to try to have an influential voice in the fields of policy and leadership. So while I was at the University of Texas, I was really fortunate enough to work with a number of faculty members that really stress the importance of taking a critical stance when it comes to research. And it was through these faculty members, and particularly Michelle Young, who brought together a number of us graduate students to work on a project focused on critical policy analysis, where I really began finding my critical voice and asking difficult questions that make people question why there are opportunities for some and not others, who has the power to make decisions, who's at the policymaking table and who isn't. And so I really think these experiences help shape who I am today and why I've dedicated my academic career to issues focusing on diversity, equity, and opportunity, and ensuring that unjust behavior and policies are called out and eliminated. And, you know, in addition to these experiences, certainly my background growing up, my family, I come from a family of educators, so that also certainly shapes who I am as well.
Thank you. Our next question. You have served for several years as a plenary session representative. Tell us about your engagement in UCEA's governance.
Sure. So in addition to my PSR work that I've done over the last 3 years, I've been a mentor for the William Boyd Politics Workshop at AERA. I've also been a member of the UCEA Awards Committee for a couple of years. And I was also a program planning co-chair for the 2014 convention that was held in Washington, D.C., where the theme was Righting Civil Wrongs, Education for Racial Justice and Human Rights. And this was just such a wonderful experience for me, as I thought the program planning committee did such a phenomenal job bringing speakers and panelists from a wide variety of backgrounds working on various issues focused on race and justice. And while I was at the convention and after the convention, I had a number of people come up to me and talk about how much they really enjoyed how the theme was so direct in its intention and really pushing people to think about the field and the work that they're doing in the field and how it's advancing education for racial justice and human rights. So that was just such a wonderful experience for me as part of UCEA.
Thank you. And the next question builds upon that one. In what other ways have you been engaged in UCEA?
So I've been engaged in UCEA ever since I was a graduate student. UCEA's headquarters were at the University of Texas when I was in graduate school. So there were a number of opportunities available to learn more about the organization, including volunteering at conventions and working on projects with Michelle Young and UCEA. Since becoming a professor, I've really done a lot of work with the Graduate Student Council by serving on sessions that they've sponsored at UCA conventions, sessions that have included preparing graduate students for jobs, mentoring sessions, publishing sessions, and I'll actually be serving on a panel at this year's conventions on paradigms and perspectives in educational research. So I've really been dedicated to the development of graduate students, and I try to do as much as I can to contribute to this development, either through mentoring students at my home institution and trying to get them involved in UCEA, or connecting with other students at other institutions at the UCEA convention. And then along with that, finally, I'm also currently an editorial board member for the Journal of Research on Leadership Education.
Thank you. Our next question. Discuss with us your scholarship, research projects, teaching, and or service that can inform the work of UCEA, particularly the work of the Executive Committee.
Yeah, so my research, you talked a little bit about it earlier, but it really explores segregation and metropolitan opportunity, and how to provide equitable educational opportunities in an increasingly diverse and very polarized society. We know from a lot of research that students that are enrolled in highly racially and economically segregated schools are likely to endure a number of inequities, including the quality of school instruction, the curriculum, facilities, and their overall educational experiences. And so these realities really make it critical to ensure that educational policy enacted at all levels, at the local, state, and federal level, is really focused on racial and economic diversity, and that our higher education institutions are preparing students to become socially just teachers, socially just leaders in our society. So I think that my scholarship is really critical in a time when we are so divided on a number of issues, and when we're living in a political and judicial context that makes it really challenging to implement policies that bring about equitable change. In terms of my teaching, I teach classes on theory, sociology of education, qualitative methods, as well as policy analysis for leadership. And in all my classes, I really try to create an environment that inspires students to question and challenge the complexities of education. I think something that we all need to be doing, and why inequities and opportunity continue to exist for many students, families, and communities. And I feel that conversations about race, ethnicity, social class, gender, sexuality, ageism, ableism, religion, among others, must always be present. And, having these conversations really can invoke a litany of responses, but I always remind students that we're debating ideas, and to be respectful, irrespective of our ideological differences. And as a result, I really think that I've been able to create an environment in my classes where students are presented with material that challenges them and helps them develop their personal worldviews, which I think can also help inform the work of the executive committee as well. So my teaching and my scholarship, and also I just want to add that I'm really focused on and dedicated to how we can create policies that are equitable and serving our underrepresented students, as well as ensuring that our future school leaders are racially conscious, civically minded, and politically savvy. It's so important that those individuals leading our schools understand the policies that they're implemented and what their role is in the process, and that they do have a role. And so I really try to do in my research, bring together the leadership and policy worlds. And I'd also like to do that as a member of the executive committee.
Excellent, thank you. And our last question for you today. Please share the reasons why you have chosen to run for the executive committee and your vision for the future of UCEA.
Sure. So UCEA, I think, is really working to become an influential voice in policy at the national level. And I obviously want to be a part of this conversation, and I want to help better position that voice, particularly when it comes to issues of equity, and be a part of the larger conversation that impacts real policy change, and specifically how we can better prepare leaders in their districts and their local communities and in their states to advocate for equitable schooling environments. I'd really like to see UCEA move forward and see how we can better connect with all the institutions in the consortium throughout the course of the year to advocate for equitable educational policy in their local and state context, and think about what we can do as an organization to better engage and learn from one another beyond the annual convention. So what can we do in between November to the next November to connect with one another, perhaps maybe regionally, getting together throughout the year, because I think that we have members that are doing and institutions doing such great work, and I really wanted to utilize that work and that research being done to make real change.
Thank you. And thank you for your time and thoughtful responses, Dr. Diem. This interview will be archived on the UCEA YouTube channel. Listeners can access or share the interview at any time. This concludes our series of executive interviews for this year. Thank you and goodbye.